In the dead silence of a rain-soaked night, a single, unfamiliar voicemail shattered the fragile peace of my existence. The message, a hushed, trembling whisper from an unknown number, spoke of a hotel room and hinted at a secret too damning to ignore. In those first 100 heart-stopping words, I felt my soul fracture. You must come alone. Tonight, at the Marlowe Hotel, room 312, the truth awaits. Trust no one. Those words ignited a terror and curiosity so profound that, in that moment, every carefully held belief began to crumble. I never imagined that a mysterious call could lead me down a path toward a discovery that would alter everything. I had always trusted my wife, Elena, implicitly. For over 10 years, our life together had been a symphony of quiet routines, shared laughter over evening coffee, and whispered promises exchanged in the soft glow of our living room. We built our marriage on the bedrock of loyalty and an unspoken understanding that the secrets we harbored were only those that truly mattered. Neighbors knew us as the couple who always had time for each other, and our families celebrated our union as one of genuine love and respect. Yet beneath that serene surface, I now suspected that something was amiss, a subtle dissonance in the harmony of our lives that I had chosen to overlook. The voicemail came unexpectedly on a night when I had just settled in after a long, grueling day at work. I remember the moment vividly. I sat in my study, the only light coming from the soft glow of my desk lamp, when my phone vibrated insistently. Glancing at the screen, I saw an unknown number. Initially, I ignored it, assuming it was a wrong number or perhaps a telemarketer. But something compelled me to press the voicemail button. As I listened, my heart began to race, and each word of that cryptic message sent shivers down my spine. The caller's voice was soft yet urgent, and the message was brief but loaded with implication, a summons to a hotel, a call to uncover a truth I was unprepared to face. My mind raced with questions as I replayed the message over and over. Who could have sent it? And why would someone call me at this hour with such a dire warning? The instructions were clear. Go to the Marlowe Hotel, room 312, immediately. Every instinct screamed that this was no mistake. The fact that the message came from an unknown number only added to the eerie sense of foreboding that clutched at my heart. I tried to recall if Elena had mentioned any unusual meetings or late-night plans, but nothing came to mind. Our conversations over the past few days had been ordinary, discussions about work, trivial plans for the weekend, and the usual affectionate banter we shared. Yet, as I sat there in that quiet study, the words of the voicemail echoed relentlessly. A gnawing suspicion took root. Perhaps there was a hidden facet of our life I had never dared to question. Unable to shake the unsettling feeling, I made a decision. I would follow the instructions, if only to silence the doubts that now tormented me. With a heavy heart and a mind clouded by uncertainty, I grabbed my coat and stepped out into the chill night. The rain was still falling softly, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing inside me. I drove through empty streets, the city's neon lights reflecting off the slick pavement, until I reached the imposing facade of the Marlowe Hotel. The hotel was a striking building, a blend of modern glass and classic elegance that seemed out of place in the modest neighborhood. Its lobby was quiet and almost deserted at that late hour, with a few tired travelers lingering in the shadowed corners. I approached the front desk, my pulse quickening with every step, and explained that I had an appointment in room 312. The concierge gave me a brief, polite nod, and after a few moments, handed me a small key card. I thanked him, my voice betraying none of the turmoil churning within me. Taking the key card, I ascended the sleek, modern elevator until the soft chimes signaled that I had reached my floor. The corridor was dimly lit, the carpet muffling my footsteps as I approached room 312. I paused before the door, my hand hovering over the small card reader. My heart pounded in my ears, and in that moment, every second stretched into an eternity. With a trembling hand, I swiped the key card. The door clicked open, revealing a quiet, elegantly decorated room. The room was shrouded in the subtle ambience of late-night luxury, dim overhead lighting, plush furniture, and a gentle hum from the air conditioning. At first glance, it appeared as any other hotel room. But as I stepped inside, my eyes were drawn to details that set my instincts ablaze. There was a faint scent of expensive perfume lingering in the air, and on a small table near the window lay a neatly folded letter, its envelope bearing no return address. My hands trembled as I picked it up, and a cold shiver ran down my spine. I opened the letter slowly, as if fearing that the words might burn my eyes. Inside, written in an elegant, flowing script, were confessions and declarations that revealed a secret I had never imagined. Details of clandestine meetings, whispered promises, and the raw truth of an affair that my wife had kept hidden. Every line of the letter was a dagger to my heart, a meticulous recounting of a love that was not ours, of a passion that had flourished in secret, and of a betrayal that had been carefully concealed behind the facade of our everyday life. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the letter clutched tightly in my hand as I tried to absorb the enormity of the revelation. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the words, yet each phrase was etched indelibly into my memory. I felt as though the ground had shifted beneath me, that the life I had built, a life of shared dreams, tender moments, and an unshakable trust, was nothing but a fragile illusion, destined to crumble under the weight of hidden truths. In that silent hotel room, under the dim glow of an ornate lamp, I was forced to confront the undeniable reality: my wife had been unfaithful. And not just that, but the secret had been so meticulously orchestrated that it took me, a man who had always believed in the sanctity of our union, nearly to the brink of despair. Every carefully chosen word in that letter spoke of moments I had never known existed, a clandestine world where the truth was hidden behind lies and the promise of something forbidden. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, the letter burning a hole in my grasp, my mind racing with questions I could scarcely begin to articulate. Who was this other man? How long had this secret been kept from me? And more painfully, how could the woman I loved so deeply have allowed our life to be built on a foundation of deception? The room, once a symbol of comfort and luxury, now felt like a prison of revelations, a space where every minute, every sound, resonated with the echo of betrayal. That night, as I drove home in a haze of sorrow and disbelief, the city lights blurred into streams of color that mirrored the tears on my face. I knew that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. The voicemail that had led me to this hidden room, the letter that exposed a world of secret passion, had forever altered the landscape of my existence. I was left with a painful clarity, a resolve to uncover every hidden truth and to confront the betrayal head-on, no matter the cost. And so, in the quiet solitude of that long, agonizing night, I vowed to never let the silence of deceit define me. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with heartache, anger, and an endless series of questions. But I knew that I could no longer live in the comforting embrace of ignorance. The key to my wife's hidden secret had been revealed, and now, with every beat of my broken heart, I would march forward on the long road to truth and, ultimately, to renewal. After that fateful discovery in the quiet sanctuary of that hotel room, I felt as though my very existence had been inverted. The secret that had been locked away in a single envelope, the clandestine confession of an affair I never imagined, had turned my world upside down. In the following days, I found myself descending into a labyrinth of hidden lies and agonizing introspection. Every moment was punctuated by memories of the key I'd found in my wife's purse and the cold evidence that had confirmed my worst fears. What began as a quiet suspicion had evolved into a relentless pursuit of truth, a journey that would force me to navigate a realm where deception had long reigned unchecked. I recall the immediate aftermath vividly. The shock of that hotel key and the damning letter still pulsed through my veins, mingling with the bitter taste of betrayal. I spent hours in isolation, locked in my study, as I replayed the scene in my mind, the room's muted elegance, the delicate scent of expensive perfume, and that solitary letter with its confession of hidden meetings. I felt both numb and enraged, each thought a jagged shard that cut into the comfortable illusion of our marriage. In those early days, I couldn't bear to face my wife, Elena, nor could I explain to anyone else the profound disillusionment that now defined me. Driven by the need for absolute clarity, I embarked on a meticulous investigation. I began by analyzing every detail from that fateful night. I revisited the hotel's name, the room number, and even tried to recall if I'd seen any other clues that might shed light on the full extent of her secret. My mind raced with questions. How long had she been leading this hidden life? Had I missed the subtle hints, the hushed phone calls at night, the evasive responses when I asked about her plans, the fleeting moments when her eyes betrayed a hidden sorrow? The evidence from that night had awakened a paranoia I could no longer ignore. I started digging into our shared digital history, examining text messages, phone logs, and even social media posts, hoping to find discrepancies that might further unravel the carefully woven fabric of our life. Late into the night, when the world outside was dark and silent, I would sit by my computer, scrolling through old messages and cross-referencing timestamps. I discovered anomalies I had dismissed before, a missed call from a number I didn't recognize during evenings when she claimed to be with friends, a text message that arrived at a time she said she was at home. Each new detail fanned the flames of my suspicion and deepened the chasm between the life I thought we had and the reality I now faced. It wasn't just the hotel key or that incriminating letter, it was a pattern of subtle deceptions, each one a betrayal that I had unwittingly overlooked in the name of trust. As days turned into an agonizing week, my investigation took on a desperate intensity. I began to maintain a secret log, every suspicious detail, every unexplained absence meticulously noted. I even attempted to track her location discreetly, using a smartphone app that I installed under the guise of helping with our family's safety. With each data point confirming that she was not where she claimed to be, I felt a tightening in my chest, a mix of anger and crushing despair. I was piecing together a timeline that revealed a hidden life, a life filled with clandestine meetings, stolen moments, and a betrayal so profound it left me reeling. I remember one particularly haunting evening when the phone's tracking app confirmed that she had visited an unfamiliar part of the city, a luxurious district known for its exclusivity and secrecy. That data point was like a final nail in the coffin of my innocence. I sat in the dark, the glow of the screen illuminating my tear-streaked face, and felt a cold, resolute determination take over. I had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it would be. With my evidence compiled into a digital dossier and my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, I began to rehearse the conversation I knew would come. I wanted it to be measured, a dialogue that would force Elena to confront the cascade of lies without descending into uncontrolled rage. I wrote and rewrote the words in my journal, trying to balance the raw shock of betrayal with a need for calm, rational inquiry. I needed to know every detail, when it began, who was involved, and why she had chosen to hide this secret part of her life from me. The idea of this confrontation both terrified and compelled me. It was as if I was standing at the edge of an abyss, where one step forward would mean plunging into a darkness from which there might be no return. In the midst of this inner storm, I couldn't help but reflect on our shared past. I replayed memories of quiet dinners, weekend getaways, and the gentle laughter we once shared. Each memory was now laced with an unbearable irony, a reminder that love, as I had known it, was built on fragile promises. I questioned how I had failed to see the subtle signs of her deception. Had I been too blinded by the comfort of routine to notice the quiet, persistent signals that something was wrong? Every regret, every moment of denial, felt like a betrayal of my own instincts. I felt a profound loneliness, as though I were the only one left standing amidst the ruins of a life that had once been so full of promise. I also began to worry about the inevitable ripple effects on our family and friends. Our neighborhood, where everyone knew each other's business and trust was the currency of life, would soon be abuzz with whispers and sideways glances. The thought of confronting not just my wife but also the society that had once celebrated our union filled me with a dread that was both personal and public. I felt torn between a desire to shield myself from judgment and a burning need to expose the truth, to hold my wife accountable for the betrayal that now defined our existence. Every night, as I lay awake under the heavy shroud of betrayal, I resolved that I could no longer live in a state of silent torment. I began to outline a plan for a confrontation that would not only force Elena to explain herself but also allow me to reclaim my sense of self. I organized all the evidence, the screenshots, the tracking logs, the annotated messages, into a dossier that was as cold and precise as it was devastatingly real. I knew that once I presented this evidence, there would be no retreat from the truth. My hands trembled as I prepared, knowing that the confrontation would be the most excruciating moment of my life, yet it was a moment I could no longer postpone. I reached out to a trusted friend, someone who had been my confidant long before the comfortable rhythms of our marriage lulled me into complacency. Over a series of late-night phone calls, I recounted every painful detail, every moment of suspicion and discovery. His steady, unjudging voice was a balm to my raw nerves. "You deserve to know," he said, his tone gentle yet resolute, "and you deserve to face the truth, even if it breaks your heart." His words, simple and direct, helped fortify my resolve. I began to see that the confrontation was not just about exposing a secret, it was about reclaiming my dignity and taking the first steps toward healing. As I prepared for that inevitable moment, I immersed myself in the details of the dossier. I printed out the screenshots, arranged the tracking data in a coherent timeline, and painstakingly annotated every anomaly. Each piece of evidence was a silent, undeniable testament to the betrayal that had been hidden from me. I kept my notes close, reviewing them over and over until the numbers and timestamps became a painful mosaic that I could not ignore. The reality was irrefutable, and with each passing hour, the weight of that truth pressed down on me with a relentless intensity. In the midst of this turmoil, I began to confront the bitter realization that our life together had been nothing more than a carefully constructed facade. The comfort, the trust, the warmth we had once shared were all built on an illusion that now lay in ruins. I questioned how a love that had once felt so unbreakable could crumble with the discovery of a single, damning voicemail. The betrayal was not just a secret kept, it was an active, deliberate choice, A choice that had led my wife to live a hidden life that was entirely separate from the one we had built together. Every time I revisited the dossier, my heart pounded with a mixture of fury and profound sorrow. I realized that this betrayal cut deeper than I had ever imagined, that it wasn't just the infidelity itself but the complete dismantling of the trust that had defined us. The evidence forced me to face not only the failure of our marriage but also the limitations of my own ability to perceive the truth. I had been so enamored with the idea of a perfect union that I failed to see the subtle signals of a secret life that had been growing quietly in the background. Now, with my digital dossier complete and my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, I stand at the threshold of a confrontation that promises to be as painful as it is inevitable. Every piece of evidence, every timestamp, every hidden message is a silent cry for accountability, a demand that the truth can no longer be kept in the dark. The weight of this truth is almost unbearable, yet I know that only by confronting it can I begin to reclaim my identity and rebuild the life that has been so brutally upended. In the stillness of that long, agonizing night, as the rain continued its steady cadence against the window, I took a deep, shuddering breath. I knew that soon, I would have to gather my courage, step forward, and let the hidden secrets of our marriage be laid bare. It was a moment that would forever alter the course of my life, a moment when the illusions of our past would be stripped away, leaving only the raw, unvarnished truth. And though the path ahead was uncertain and fraught with heartache, I resolved to face it head-on, to let the truth, however painful, be the beacon that guides me out of the darkness. I stand now, ready to confront the betrayal that has shattered my world, a betrayal documented in every painstaking detail and etched into my memory with an indelible mark of pain. The time for silence is over, the road to renewal begins with this inevitable reckoning. As I prepare to step into that final confrontation, I carry with me the scars of a love once cherished, and the quiet, unyielding resolve to reclaim my life, piece by piece, from the wreckage of deception. Under a sky bruised with the first hints of dawn, I knew that the moment I had been dreading for 24 long hours was finally upon me. Every second since I created that fake dating profile had led me to this irrevocable juncture, where the secret I unearthed would either shatter my world completely or force me to redefine who I was. In the raw light of morning, as I prepared to confront my wife, I felt a mix of apprehension and a grim determination. My heart pounded like a war drum in my chest, each beat echoing the truth that had been unmasked. She had betrayed me, and that betrayal had been displayed for all the digital world to see. I had meticulously gathered every piece of evidence, the flirtatious messages, the explicit screenshots, the timeline that mapped out every deceptive encounter. Now, with this dossier in hand, I sat in our kitchen, the table set as it once had been for the cheerful breakfasts we shared. But today, the silence between us was heavier than any unspoken word of affection from our past. I knew that when I presented the evidence, the facade that had so long cloaked our life would crumble before my very eyes. When she entered the room, I could see a flicker of something, perhaps guilt, perhaps fear, in her eyes. I greeted her with a measured tone that belied the tempest within me. "We need to talk," I said softly, my voice steady but laden with every ounce of pain and resolve I had been holding inside. I placed the dossier on the table and waited, the silence stretching interminably as I searched her face for any sign of recognition, of remorse. For a moment, she said nothing. The ticking of the wall clock was the only sound, each tick a reminder of the seconds slipping away from the life we once knew. Finally, with trembling hands, she glanced at the printed messages and then at me. I didn't think you'd find out this fast," she whispered, her voice breaking as she tried to weave together excuses that now rang hollow. The conversation that followed was agonizingly slow, a painful unraveling of years of shared trust. I demanded answers not with a scream but with an icy calm that left no room for denial. "How could you?" I asked, each word deliberate. "How could you not only have an affair but also brag about it in a dating app group chat? What did you expect me to think about us?" My voice was steady, yet each syllable cut deep into the fabric of our marriage. Her eyes filled with tears as she began to explain. She spoke haltingly, mentioning feelings of neglect and a desire for excitement, reasons that might explain a fleeting indiscretion, but not the brazen, public exhibition of infidelity that I had discovered. The shock of her words mingled with my own heartbreak. I listened as she recounted secret meetings and whispered conversations with a man I never knew existed in our world, a man who had been nothing more than a fantasy turned real, in the most painful way possible. Every detail she uttered, every feeble attempt at justification, only deepened the rift between us. I recalled all the subtle signs, the times she'd disappear without explanation, the way she'd clutch her phone when I was nearby, the fleeting expressions that betrayed a hidden life. It was as if every small moment of doubt had culminated in that final, devastating revelation. And now, standing here in the cold light of truth, I realized that our marriage, built on years of shared dreams and promises, was irrevocably broken. As the confrontation drew to a close, the room was filled with an unbearable silence. I felt a profound sorrow for the life we had lost, a life I had believed was unbreakable, only to see it disintegrate before my eyes. In that crushing quiet, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The betrayal was not merely a lapse of judgment or a momentary mistake, it was a systematic erosion of trust that had left scars too deep to be ignored. In the days that followed, I withdrew into myself. I spent long hours in solitude, rereading every message, every timestamp from the dossier, trying to make sense of how the perfect illusion we had built could have been so easily dismantled. I wandered the quiet halls of our home, each room now a repository of painful memories, the gentle laughter, the shared secrets, all now tainted by the bitter truth. I questioned every moment of our past, grappling with the realization that I had been blinded by love and comfort, too wrapped up in our shared routine to see the subtle signs of a hidden life. My family, once my pillar of support, soon began to notice the change in me. Relatives who had always admired our union now exchanged glances filled with sympathy and unspoken judgment. At family gatherings, I found myself standing at the periphery of conversations, a ghost of the man I once was, burdened by the weight of betrayal. The whispers grew louder, and soon even the tight-knit bonds of our community were marred by scandal. The public exposure of my wife's secret did not come from my own making. Rather, it spilled out slowly through the cracks of our unraveling lives. Every comment, every sympathetic look, reminded me that the trust one had once held so dear was now a distant memory. Yet, amid the isolation and the public judgment, I began to discover a quiet resilience within myself. I sought solace in therapy, pouring out my raw emotions to a counselor who helped me navigate the labyrinth of betrayal and loss. In our sessions, I learned that while the truth of my wife's actions had shattered our shared life, it also presented an opportunity, a chance to rebuild, to redefine who I was, and to reclaim the dignity that had been eroded by deceit. Healing begins when you accept the truth, however painful, she would say gently, encouraging me to see that every scar could be a mark of survival rather than a symbol of defeat. Emboldened by those words, I slowly began to take tentative steps toward renewal. I reconnected with old friends, people who had known me before the halo of a perfect marriage, and their unwavering support reminded me that I was more than the sum of my heartbreak. I started to embrace the small joys of life again, long walks in the crisp morning air, quiet afternoons spent reading in the park, and even revisiting hobbies I had once loved, like playing the guitar. Each small act of self-care was a defiant stand against the darkness that had threatened to consume me. In the quiet solitude of my study, I began to write, a stream of consciousness journal that captured every moment of my journey through betrayal, grief, and gradual healing. I poured out my anguish, my anger, and slowly, the emerging hope that there might be a future beyond this heartbreak. I realized that while the betrayal had torn apart the life I once knew, it also forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities and to rediscover a strength I had long forgotten. The words on those pages became a roadmap, a guide for rebuilding my identity from the ruins of a shattered trust. One particularly poignant day, as I sat watching the sunset from our front porch, I allowed myself to truly feel the paradox of my situation. The sky was ablaze with brilliant hues of orange and pink, a stark contrast to the gray despair that had characterized the days following the confrontation. In that moment, I recognized that life, in all its beauty and imperfection, continued unabated despite the scars of betrayal. I vowed to use that moment of beauty as a symbol of hope, a reminder that even when the most cherished dreams are crushed, there remains a spark within us capable of igniting a new beginning. As the months passed, the initial shock of the confrontation began to settle into a persistent, quiet ache, a reminder that healing is not an event but a journey. I continued to work through my pain in therapy, gradually learning to forgive, not for my wife's sake, but for my own, so that the relentless cycle of anger might finally give way to peace. I started to open up more in conversations with those who cared for me, allowing myself to share the raw, unfiltered truth of my experience. In doing so, I discovered that my vulnerability was not a weakness but a bridge to deeper connection and understanding. Now, standing at the threshold of a new chapter, I look back on that devastating period as a painful yet transformative part of my story. The night I discovered the secret through that mysterious voicemail, the hours spent unraveling the digital trail of deceit, and the harrowing confrontation that followed will forever be etched in my memory. Yet, with every scar, I have gained a deeper understanding of who I am and what I truly deserve, a life defined by honesty, self-respect, and the courage to rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. As I prepare to move forward, I do so with cautious optimism. I know the road ahead is uncertain, and I am fully aware that the wounds of betrayal may never completely heal. But I also understand that every step I take toward reclaiming my life is a victory, a testament to the unyielding strength of the human spirit. I have learned that even in the darkest moments, when the perfect illusion of love has crumbled into dust, there lies within us the capacity to rise, to forgive, and to create a future that is even more authentic and resilient than the past. This is not the end of my story, but rather the beginning of a long, arduous journey toward renewal. With each new day, I choose to embrace the painful truths of my past as stepping stones to a brighter future. I choose to honor the lessons learned from betrayal, to let the memories fuel my determination to live a life defined by truth and genuine connection. Though I may always carry the scars of that fateful confrontation, I now see them as symbols of survival, evidence that even when trust is shattered, the capacity to rebuild and find hope remains within us. And so, as the soft light of a new day washes over me, I take a deep, steadying breath and step forward into an uncertain tomorrow. I carry with me the memory of a love lost and the painful wisdom of betrayal, but I also hold on to the belief that from these ruins, a stronger, more honest life can emerge. The road to healing may be long and fraught with challenges, but I am ready to walk it, one measured, courageous step at a time, toward a future where my heart, though forever marked by pain, beats with the promise of renewal and the quiet, enduring hope of a new beginning.